Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 10-Minute Book Talk. I am your host today, Katherine Reay, with my co-hostess, Rachel Linden and Marie Bostwick. And we have the very special privilege of spending time today with one of our favorite people, Patti Callahan Henry, and talking about her new book, The Story She Left Behind. It is a gorgeous cover, it is a gorgeous story, and you will not be disappointed in this fabulous 10-minute talk. Patti, welcome. We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. You know that right before a book comes out, you're like eager to talk to people who understand. And I love talking to all three of you. So thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Well, real briefly, without giving away spoilers, tell us what your book's about.
So this novel is about a young woman named Clara Harrington who has an 8-year-old daughter, but Clara's mother disappeared 25 years ago. Clara's mother was a very famous child prodigy author who wrote a very famous fantasy novel. When she disappeared, she left behind a sequel to her famous novel. The catch being, the secret is written in a secret language that she, the mom, created. So there's no way for Clara to read the sequel or know what it is, and she has no idea what happened to her mom. But the novel opens in 1952 when Clara, 25 years after her mother disappeared, gets a phone call from a man in London who has discovered her mother's language in his father's library.
So
much.
Unfold from there. Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
no.
so Clara and her own 8-year-old daughter, Winnie, embark on an adventure to try and retrieve the language and find out about the story she left behind.
So many twists and turns. I just love all of this. So this book, if I'm understanding correctly, it was actually kind of based or built around an actually a really fascinating true mystery. Can you tell us like how you found that and what sparked it into a fabulous, imaginary, wonderful, twisty-turny novel that you have written?
So I thought I might write a novel about Beatrix Potter. And so
Mm.
I was doing some research and I discovered that when Beatrix Potter was a child, she created a coded language so that her mother could not read her journals. How smart is she?
I had
Because
no idea, and I love
yes,
it.
most people don't. I still might write about her, but she was so fascinating and so brilliant, but she was also a rebel. And her mother did not want her writing or illustrating or trying to be an author. And so she put her thoughts in a secret journal with a coded language she made up. And that sent me down to play on Peter Rabbit. That sent me down a rabbit trail of authors who made up languages. And I ran across this woman, a Boston author, an American author named Barbara Newhall Follett, a child prodigy who wrote her first novel when she was 8 years old, published it with Knopf when she was 12 years old. Rave New York Times review. She was set to be one of the most famous novelists of fantasy, children's fantasies. And when she was 26 years old, she disappeared. She walked out of the front door of her house, got in a fight with her husband, and was never seen again. She left behind a secret language she created, a fantasy world, and some other works that are all sitting in 16 dusty boxes at Columbia University. The only work that we have of hers that's published now is her original novel she wrote when she was 12 called The House Without Windows. And I just couldn't believe this. I thought to myself, if there was a British man who had written his first novel when he was 12 years old, a children's fantasy novel, created his own language and fantasy world, and then disappeared, we'd be studying him. But not Barbara Newhall Follett. She has disappeared from the pages of history. So I thought I might write the novel about her, but in the end, I used her as inspiration for my own character.
Great
My
inspiration.
goodness. What a find. That is so fabulous. So fascinating. Okay, so then you, instead of doing it in Boston, you decided to set it in one of your favorite and my favorite places. You went to England, and I understand you did some on-the-ground research. Tell us about that. Tell us about your
So
research.
I give my character Bronwyn Barbara Newhall Follett's history. So Bronwyn is actually a Bostonian author who has moved to the low country of South Carolina before she disappears. The original woman never had kids. So my character is married and has a daughter when she disappears. And so we start in Bluffton, South Carolina, where Bronwyn escapes at 2 o'clock in the morning on the May River, and we don't know what happened to her. And then we spend some time in South Carolina, but then we go to London during the Great Smog of 1952, which is a key element in the story. Because it sends my character and her asthmatic little girl. If you know anything about the Great Smog, it was one of the greatest natural disasters in London, killed thousands of people, and even today changed clean air laws and acts in England. But it sends my characters to the Lake District of England, which is where most of the story unfolds. And I did that for a lot of reasons, but the main reason I did it is because that is where Beatrix Potter lived, and I was honoring her influence on the novel. So we get to see Beatrix Potter's house and learn more about her. But yes, I visited there and spent some time there. Such a hardship
It's
to
such
spend
a
a
hard-
week
Suffering for art.
suffering. Suffering as I hike all over the Lake District and stay in this old stone house where the story actually takes place. So everywhere that you read about in this novel, I put my feet there.
I love that. That's
Love that.
amazing. Well, you have got some, I mean, typical to you, to be honest, beautiful, deep, rich themes
thank
within this
you.
story. And I mean, touching upon secrets, searching for truth, a mother and daughter connection that is just beautifully portrayed.
Thank
What
you.
do you want readers to walk away with? Because we do pull so much from your stories. What
You know, I
resonates?
never want to tell my readers what to take away, but I will tell you one of the most meaningful to me, aside from, of course, the mother-daughter relationship and what I call mother hunger, a woman most of her life wondering what happened to her mother and knowing she had this sequel that was left behind and yet unable to translate it or even figure out what happened to her mom. But one of the things for me that was the most powerful and is a theme in the book throughout is language and how we use it. Because the author, the real author who inspired it, and the author in my fictionalized version have created a language. And of course, we know authors who have created languages, most famous being, of course, Tolkien creating Elvish for Middle Earth. Lewis has created a couple words, same with Madeleine L'Engle. And this idea that the language we have isn't enough for what we are trying to say. And there's something fascinating about realizing or being smart enough, like Barbara Newhall Follett, to realize that the language she has isn't enough and create her own. And one of the languages I dive into in the novel is Gaelic, Irish Gaelic. I miserably tried to teach it to myself during COVID. It didn't go well.
I did too. I lasted like 3 Berlitz lessons. I was like,
I did the best I could until I hit a wall.
me too.
But
That was my COVID project.
I think the only way to learn Irish Gaelic is to immerse yourself. I think you'd have to actually, people have told me there's a place in Ireland you can do that. It's probably not on something I can do this month, but I'm fascinated by Gaelic. For example, they have 40 words for the word field. 40, right? They have more than that for water or what it looks like with when there's wind on it or when it's choppy or when it's calm or when. So the language is so particular that there are nuances that would take a lifetime to learn. And people are trying to save the language. So for me, the language and how we use language and what happens when our language isn't enough for us is a huge and meaningful part of the novel.
Love that. That's extraordinary and so true. I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, our perspective is influenced by our language.
Exactly. And if we don't have the word we're searching for, how do we express
How do
ourselves?
we, yeah,
Right.
I mean, that.
And
that's
there
an
is,
incredible thought.
there is, so I speak Spanish. I lived in Mexico and I was, you know, I sort of had to learn another language. And it was like, English doesn't have enough words.
Yes.
You know, like Spanish had so many more shades of meaning than there was a specific word for. And I didn't quite realize that in some ways we were limited until then. So
I have this gorgeous coffee table book. It's about this big. It's called Lost Words, and it's illustrated by this woman named Jackie Morris. And English also is being, in many ways, with social media and the way we speak, is being dumbed down, and we're losing words. You know, while people are fighting to hold on to Gaelic, and I follow all these Irish Gaelic Instagram that they're post a word a day, and when we lose a way to express ourselves, we lose the nuance of trying to explain our human connection. So that was fascinating for me.
It is
Yeah.
fascinating. Okay, before we let you go, because we could go on forever, we want to ask you one more
I bet
question.
I went over my time. I always do.
It doesn't matter.
It was
There's no
fascinating. So
time limit.
we're all good.
You
I'm
get
sure the
extra.
question's good.
Get extra
What is
minutes.
bringing you joy today, Patti?
What is bringing me joy today? Knowing that I'm about to hit the road and see readers.
Yeah.
As you all know, writing alone, especially a story like this is a novel that I spent a year on and then ditched and started over. So I had an entire manuscript that is in the cut folder. In fact, on my Substack, I've been posting cut scenes because originally the novel was about Barbara. So like I was writing about the woman who wrote this book. And so I had to put that aside and start over. So that I was able to do that. Katherine, I actually think I saw you right after that happened. We were in Florida together, and I was having a bit of what might commonly be called despair. So to know now that this book is here and in my hands, and I'm ready to talk about that, is giving me joy, because there was a point in the creation of it that I didn't think that would happen.
Yeah. Well, everybody here, the book can now be in your hands because this is Pub Week for this beautiful story, the story she left behind. So I hope you'll grab a copy, check out Patti's website, see where she's going to be on tour. And Patti, thank you so much for being here today with us. And thank you all as well for being here today with us. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.